Thank you for watching QTV. With the news, my name is Diana Sumbwe. The headlines: visiting Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has affirmed his country's commitment to sustaining close relations with Zambia. The Health Professions Council of Zambia, HPCZ, has closed down 5 health facilities on the Copperbelt for virus violations contrary to the laws of Zambia. And now the news in detail. Visiting Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has affirmed his country's commitment to sustaining close relations with Zambia. President Mnangagwa says his administration remains committed to strengthening the bilateral relations that exist between Zambia and Zimbabwe. He says this is as the two countries endeavor to attain the middle income status by the year 2030. Speaking in Lusaka when he graced Zambia's 54th Independence Day at State House, Mr. Mnangagwa expressed hope that ties between Zambia and Zimbabwe will further be strengthened. Mr. Mnangagwa has also urged the president and future generations of both countries to build a strong foundation on the spirit of Pan-Africanism. He believes that the spirit of Pan-Africanism cannot break the two SADC countries' bonds, which he says has been built and cemented over centuries ago. And Mr. Mnangagwa says Zimbabwe will forever be grateful to the sacrifices Zambians have made in order that his country attains independence from colonialism. He has, however, noted the need for Zambia and Zimbabwe to improve their connectivity and regional integration. Mr. Mnangagwa is calling upon the two countries to consider modernizing the Chirundu border and Victoria Falls port of entry. He has further called on the private sectors in the two countries to take advantage of the initiatives by their governments and partner in business. Meanwhile, Mr. Mnangagwa has expressed confidence that as chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security, President Edgar Lungu will lead the region diligently. He notes that this is especially as a lot of SADC member countries hold elections during his tenure of office.
Through the established structures of the Zambia-Zimbabwe Joint Permanent Commission, let us scale up our trade, investment, defense, security, education, scientific and cultural cooperation. Equally important is the need to deepen the people-to-people exchanges, as these are a catalyst for stronger relations between our two countries. To attain the desired middle-income economy status and fully industrialize and modernize our two countries, it is imperative that we develop reliable, adequate, and appropriate energy, transport, and ICT infrastructure in our respective countries. We shall, to this end, be implementing joint projects in hydropower generation, road and rail rehabilitation, and construction of others. To improve connectivity and enhance regional and the continental integration, our two land-linked countries must modernize the one-stop border post at Chirundu, as well as the Victoria Falls port of entry, in keeping with the traffic and trade flow between our two countries. As sister countries, we can achieve much more when we work together. I challenge both the public and private sectors of our two countries to partner the ongoing initiatives by our two governments. Zimbabwe is open for business. Through this
Earlier, President Lungu and his Zimbabwean counterpart Emmerson Mnangagwa led foreign dignitaries and service chiefs in laying wreaths at the Freedom Statue in Lusaka. The Movement for National Transformation, MNT, has observed the need to go beyond independence from colonial rule to crafting a new world Zambia. MNT President Daniel Shimunza says Zambia needs to recraft its state from being a third world to first world status. In a statement to Q News, Mr. Shimunza says the state has corrupted itself and therefore must be changed for effective systems, structures, strategies, and democratic institutions. Mr. Shimuza says the corporate sector equally needs to start empowering Zambians more, as well as creating critical capital for the country. He states that this entails that Zambia has to be self-determined. Mr. Shimuza states this will, however, require a transformative and mature government that is good in accountability, transparency, and one that is spiritual, God-fearing, and righteous. He says Zambians must refuse to tolerate third-world politics, leaders and mediocrity 54 years after independence.
We will honor our freedom fighters more if we can develop our country to become advanced and a first world country. This is the way to go, and we believe that Zambia can do it in Africa and become a best setter to first world development, not middle income. Middle income is a general vision that the United Nations has given to all backward countries. We must understand that what is embedded in the 7th National Development Plan are benchmarks of general benchmarks, minimum benchmarks that countries must work for as sustainable goals. But we are saying we need to generate a home brand and homegrown vision, homegrown solutions, and inward-looking policies for first world Zambia that are going to make us an advanced country in 2021 and beyond. Those who are copying this agenda in a third world context cannot implement a modernization policy, an industrialization policy in a third world structure, systems, and strategies. And this is why the Movement for National Transformation is a political party with an ideological base that Zambia has never had to take us to ultimate development.
A committee of local eminent persons to chair the Zambia Center for Interparty Dialogue (ZCID)-led International Political Dialogue has formally been constituted. The committee, comprised of Chief Ngabwe, Senior Chief Mazimawe, Akashambata Mbikustalewanika, and Chifumu Banda. ZCID spokesperson Jackson Silagwe has disclosed to Q News that all 4 members of the committee have been approved and are ready to proceed with the chairing of the National Dialogue. Mr. Silagwe states that the 4-member committee has agreed to reconcile political leaders in the country and preside over reforms based on the 4 broad thematic areas. He says the thematic areas are constitutional and institutional reforms, separation of powers and judicial independence, tolerance, freedom of assembly, and civility in politics and electoral reforms. Mr. Silagwe states that in view of this development, it is envisaged that the national dialogue process can finally take off before the end of 2018.
Political parties agreed to have local eminent persons to chair the national dialogue. Thus, the following local eminent persons have been proposed and approved. Number 1, Chief Ngabwe. Number 2, Senior Chief Mazimawe. 3, Mr. Akashambata Mbikustalewanika. 4, Mr. Chifumu Banda. The eminent persons have since all agreed to take up this important national assignment to reconcile political leaders and preside over reforms based on the 4 broad thematic areas, namely constitutional and institutional reforms, separation of powers and judicial independence, tolerance, freedom of assembly and civility in politics, and electoral reforms. In view of this development, it is emphasized that the national dialogue process can finally take shape and take off before the end of 2018. The nation, political parties and stakeholders will be briefed accordingly on a detailed roadmap onwards. The Zambia Center for Interparty Dialogue expresses its profound gratitude to the eminent persons and assures them of its unwavering support.
Socialist Party General Secretary Cosmas Musumali has described as shocking government's decision to indefinitely suspend the writing of the 2018 exams for grade 7, 9 and 12. Dr. Musumali has also wondered why such postponement of writing of Examination Council of Zambia ECZ exams does not happen often. In a statement to Q News, Dr. Musumali says as far as he can remember, there has not been a single year that can be described as smooth and fair for over 20 years now during these exams. Dr. Musumali thinks that the problem to the country's education system goes beyond leakage of exam papers. He thinks that there is more cheating through unauthorized assistance to candidates during exams, which he says likely involves invigilators and fake candidates hired to write for those able to pay. Dr. Musumali adds the rampant smuggling of notes answers, charts, and other materials by exam candidates is what further makes a mockery of the entire exam exercise. He says a political system that encourages and fosters greed and corruption is, however, what is to blame. Dr. Musumali says such a system is unable to manage public pressure for good school results and does not have the inbuilt incentive for adequate investments in education for its citizens. He says what Zambia needs is a well-funded public education system based on equity and fairness. The Health Professions Council of Zambia, HPCZ, has closed down 5 health facilities on the Copperbelt province for various violations contrary to the laws of Zambia. The facilities closed are Section 5 Mine Clinic and Baluga Shaft Mine Clinic, both located in Luansha, while others are Copperbelt University Clinic in Kitwe, Sinozam Friendship Hospital, also in Kitwe, and Hilltop Hospital, located in Ndola. HPCZ Chief Executive Officer and Registrar Aaron Mujujati says the closure follows ongoing inspections by HPCZ officers on the Copperbelt who identified various violations at the respective facilities. Dr. Mujajati has disclosed that Section 5 Mine Clinic, for example, overstocked and dispensed expired drugs and medical supplies. He says Baluga Shaft Mine Clinic was equally found to be stocking and dispensing expired drugs and medical supplies. Dr. Mujajati states that violations by the 2 health facilities are contrary to Section 60, subsection of the Medicine and Allied Substances Act No. 3 of 2013 of the laws of Zambia. He has told Q News that these violations were also recorded at the Copperbelt University Clinic. Dr. Mujajati says the closure of the said health facilities in this case is pursuant to Section 51A of the Health Professions Act No. 24 of 2009 of the laws of Zambia. The Medicines Transparency Alliance of Zambia says Zambia needs rights policies if it is to attain the 2030 vision of becoming a prosperous middle-income country. Coordinator Lioka Lioka says achieving middle-income status partly requires increasing annual health expenditure per capita to a period average of 150 United States dollars. Mr. Lioka has observed that inadequate trained staff, expensive medicines, inefficient and inaccurate delivery of commodities are still challenges that are also hindering the growth of the health sector.
A health society is a strong prerequisite for a health nation. Zambia's goal of becoming a prosperous middle-income nation by the year 2030, as stated in the Vision 2030, will not come, to fruition without the right policies being implemented. Achieving middle-income status requires increasing annual health expenditure per capita to a period, or rather to a period average of 150 US dollars, comparable to middle-income countries like Botswana, Gabon, Panama, and South Africa. A number of strides have been made, in the health sector through various government interventions and policies. And you know that the Patriotic Front government has been categorically clear, and passionate about its stance on getting health, to the last mile. And this can be seen by the number of health facilities in form of health posts and hospitals that have been constructed, over the last, 7 years, as well as a strong push, for employing more human resources for health. That includes all categories of health staff, and furthermore, the establishment of regional medical hubs to achieve the last mile distribution of medicines and other essential medical commodities is actually a very big step. A health society.
The Millers Association of Zambia MAZ has linked the failure by the Food Reserve Agency FRA to meet its 2018 reserve purchase target to the restriction on the export of maize. MAZ President Andrew Chintala says the imposed administrative restriction on the export of maize and mealie meal may be the reasons why most farmers are still holding on to grain. And Mr. Chintala says the announcement by the Minister of Agriculture that the FRA may not meet its target of purchasing 500,000 tons of maize this year has come as a source of concern to millers. He says there is need for farmers in the country who are still holding on to their maize to offload to the FRA before the maize marketing season closes. Mr. Chintala is hoping that the Ministry of Agriculture will convene a meeting within the soonest possible time in order to chart the way forward with key players in the agriculture sector. He says doing so will rule out any possible looming hunger and guarantee food security in the country. Mr. Chintala believes that Zambia can only engage in the exportation of maize if it is food secured.
The Minister's announcement with regards to the concerns that the Food Reserve Agency might not meet the required target for them to buy 500,000 metric tons. Really, I think it has come to the attention of the industry. And I think as industry players, we need to also encourage some of the farmers that are still holding on to the stocks to take advantage of the remaining period, because FRA is in the market up to month end of October. Probably they may decide to review the situation depending on their purchases and the progress made and the outlook of the market there, because definitely in some regions there's maize that is coming, and I think as you heard my counterpart from ZNFU Jeva Zimba was addressing or trying to question or appeal to the government to try and relax the restrictions that have been imposed in terms of the movement of the grain from other towns into other places within the country, to say why should there be such restrictions. That could be one of the reasons also that could be delaying or holding some of the stocks that are discouraging the farmers from accessing the market and probably getting to the depots of FRA. So we hope that as the President has directed, that the Minister of Agriculture will actually call for the consultative meeting to meet the stakeholders to try and look at the situation in order to ensure that we assist or we work together as industry players in ensuring that the country still remains food secure. It is ultimately, I think, our preposition as well as key industry players that the country must be food secure before we can look at trade within the region. The Minister.
The Teaching Council of Zambia TCZ has warned that it will prosecute any unscrupulous persons purporting to be TCZ workers and collecting money from unsuspecting clients. TCZ Registrar Ebi Muvanga has further urged members of the public to be wary of some unscrupulous persons purporting to be TCZ inspection officers. Dr. Muvanga has noted with regret that some unscrupulous persons are going around the country impersonating TCZ officers, demanding payment of the said fees through phone calls. He has clarified that the TCZ has no agents and does not receive hand cash from clients. Dr. Muvanga says fees for teachers' registration and practicing certificates are paid directly into bank accounts and not through mobile cash transfers. The Tobacco Association of Zambia TAZ has purchased 23 million kilograms of tobacco from the 2017-2018 farming season. Out of the purchased 23 million kilograms, 12 million kilograms is for the TAZ members, while the rest of the tobacco was purchased from independent growers. And association's consultant, Ponto Mumbi, is delighted as the contractual targets have been met. Mr. Mumbi says an overall market assessment will, however, indicate kilograms of tobacco produced in the 2017-2018 farming season. He notes that this will also assist in predicting the expected 2018-2019 production figures.
Obviously, challenges are always there in terms of, like, if you heard the speeches of the minister, the president, and the president of the ZNFU, and the state president, the challenges always are financing in nature. Okay. At the moment, the bulk of the financing, if not everything, comes from the tobacco buying merchants themselves, extended to the growers. Okay. Independent financing, for example, from the commercial banks or from any other financing houses is not there. Obviously.
The National Association of Media Arts NAMA has urged government to reinforce support to the film industry for it to become lucrative to the country. NAMA Vice President Changa Kalumba feels that the film industry is not receiving the much-needed support from the government. Mr. Kalumba, however, believes that given the adequate support it deserves, the film industry is poised for positive contribution to the country's economic growth. He has since stressed the need for government to take a leading role in promoting the industry.
I've heard that QTV has now started bringing up initiatives where they are looking into scripts, looking into partnering with filmmakers, but we would like the government to take a leading role in ensuring that this is a sector which is recognized, in ensuring that they put up structures which will support this sector. Because for every sector to thrive and to be beneficial, it is all about the structures that you put, the measures that you put in place so that there is support. In terms of film funding, in terms of development of skills, so that in return, the same people are going to work, and the government can use that as the way of empowering people, like giving them loans to do production, giving them loans to go into school, so that when they come back and they start working in this industry, they're still able to repay their loans. So that has been our plea, not only as filmmakers, but now as people in administration and NAMA. We are trying to dialogue with the government so that they speed up the process of the film policy, because the film policy provides a lot of guidelines which will help shape the film industry. Because as of right now, all we have are individuals who are business-minded. Okay, so it's not a film industry yet, it's a film business. Because I've got a production house, someone else has got a production house, but there are no guidelines, okay, which says this is how this industry is going to operate.
Lusaka resident Fatima Dring has become one of the few Zambians to have turned 100 years old at the time Zambia is celebrating its 54th independence. Mrs. Dring, whose birthday is on the 23rd of October, has this year opted to celebrate her 1 century birthday on the country's Independence Day. And speaking during a family gathering held in Lusaka, her nephew Dante Sanders said in her 100 years, Mrs. Dring has proved to be an inspiration to the family and those who have come to know her. Mr. Sanders says being a daughter of a lumber chieftainess, his auntie has played a role in breaking the barrier of intermarriages between people of different races in Zambia. He says his auntie has also been a long-time supporter of bringing up a family in a respectable way. Mr. Sanders says he is therefore very proud to be a part of her family, as he learned from her that people need to respect each other regardless of what one may be in society.
So when we talk about how the systems used to be in the days before the white men really took control of this country, you know, I look to people like her to give us all kinds of messages and so on and so on. She's been a long-time supporter and a true believer in bringing up a family in a most respectable way, and I'm very proud to be part of that family, because they all taught us one thing: to respect each other, you know, irrespective of who you may be in society, but respect and, you know, and honor and so on and so on is something that comes with them all the way. So I'm very proud that my auntie has reached this age. It's not an easy task for anybody to reach that particular age, but here we are celebrating her 100th birthday today.
A human rights activist has noted the need for police to be fair in the enforcement of the Public Order Act. Mr. Sebastian Chulu, who is also former president of the Voters Association of Zambia, VAZ, has expressed concern over what he has termed as misapplication of the Public Order Act regards certain sections of society. He states that the current reports where police are being seen to be selective regards which political party to allow to assemble freely should come to an end. He has, however, advised citizens to act according to the law once they are allowed to assemble, as this will also encourage the police to fairly apply the Public Order Act.
The only problem I have is the way the Public Order Act is being implemented by the police themselves, because the Public Order Act is one instrument and facility that protects the citizen of this country, whether an individual, whether a grouping, a political party, or a church, to freely hold meetings, to freely hold demonstrations, to freely express their views by gathering a number of people of their choice. And on that one, I feel the way it is being implemented now is not in order. In a democracy, I do not expect a system that will try to strangle the views of other people. That is totally wrong. Government, the police, and any law-abiding citizen should ensure that the Public Order Act is made as simple as possible to anyone who wants to apply for it. There should not be any restrictions. Of course, there are situations where if it's a government institution, if it's the ruling party, of course they have to be given the upper hand. But there must be some balance in the way the policy of the Public Order Act is being discharged and issued to people.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. Visiting Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has affirmed his country's commitment to sustaining close relations with Zambia. The Health Professions Council of Zambia, HPCZ, has closed down 5 health facilities on the Copper Belt for virus violations contrary to the laws of Zambia. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Diana Sumbwe. Thank you for watching. Continue watching QTV.